am engaged. And getting married is a very, exciting yet scary time in a girl's life. And I love my fiance with all my heart. He's a great guy. He's a red-headed Brooklyn Italian, while I'm half Thai and half black. We're a very non-traditional couple, and that's great and fun, but with all this wedding planning and the business of marrying, I've come upon some very natural stresses, like planning for our financial future and deciding where we're going to live, and dealing with the very real fear of the possibility of having red-headed black babies. And so, no, I'm serious. I mean, these people exist. They are for real. I've seen it. And knowing that I'm involved in the exact equation to create it kind of makes me want to shit the bed at night. I mean, now don't get me wrong. This isn't some projection or pregnancy fears. Oh, hell no. I'm looking forward to the day I get to stop dieting and embrace fat like I'm channeling Snooki. No. It's the whole permanent kick-me sign DNA that I'm creating that bothers me. I mean, think black albino kids from National Geographic magazines, like creamy white skin, freckled wide nose bridges, and nappy hair, except mine are gonna have fire engine red afros. And I realize black people have freckles too, but I'm not saying cool freckles in that like speckled Caribbean kind of way. I'm talking freckles like my daddy's the Massa and this is the Irish McDublin plantation kind of way. I mean, it's just unusual, and that's tough. Now, I'm adopted. I'm Thai and black and grew up in a white family. I know all about being the unusual one. My future husband is redheaded. Enough said. He still is highly scarred from a youth filled of carrot top and fire crotch, and hell, he still gets it now as an adult. It's like a weird, socially acceptable form of discrimination that doesn't go away. So there's concern for what the future has in store for our children, the honeymoon byproducts of a black Thai mother and red-headed Italian father. Now, as much as I love my family, it's just a simple truth. I look nothing like them. I was the lone black kid in lily-white suburbia, and let me say, it ain't easy being green. I mean, I was loved, I grew up in a functional home, that part was all pretty regular and middle-class upbringing, but when I was little and grown-ups asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I'd say, white, like my mommy. I mean, aw, a darling response from a cute, confused little black girl. And I was just that, a confused little girl. I mean, we didn't discuss race much at home, and it's pretty normal not to with your 6-year-olds. But then again, you don't usually need to bring it up when everybody looks the same. And I look different, and that's difficult for any child to combat when all children want to do is fit in. In kindergarten, I distinctly remember having an argument with another little girl over my race. She was like, "You're brown." And I kept shouting, "No, I'm black." And she held up 2 crayons, held them to my arm and said, "But no, you're brown." And I had nothing. I mean, what do you say to that? She was right. And I remember simply crying, "No, I'm black. I don't know why they call me black, but that's what they say, so I'm black." An identity crisis over crayons. I just didn't understand why I was in a black category and not another category that included me with my family and peers. Like, oh, I'll never forget the first time someone dropped the N-bomb on me. I was 8 years old, and I punched the name caller square in the belly. I didn't even know what the word meant, but clearly it was a trumped-up version of butthead, so some kids ran to tattle on me, and I was, of course, approached and initially reprimanded. But when I began to defend myself by explaining what the girl had said, I was off scot-free. I was excused to play while the girl was stuck on timeout for the rest of recess. I was doing the happy dance thinking, I don't know what this word means, but it's my automatic get-out-of-jail-free card. And sweet, except for the racial intervention that came after. You see, the principal was in turmoil trying to figure out how to handle the sensitive issue, since there wasn't enough black kids at school for this to be a regular occurrence. So he pulled the only minority teacher in the school, a Native American man, out of his class and asked him to speak with me to make sure I was okay. An 8-year-old Blasian girl, sitting in a small room with a middle-aged, muckleshoot Indian man awkwardly discussing race. Comical in retrospect, but rather miserable at the time. I mean, all I took away was never punch anyone again. They'll punish you by putting you in a room with Mr. Tafoya to discuss the history of American Indians. And I fully attest, violence is not the answer. But what do I tell my red-headed black baby when the N-bombs drop away during recess? They'll be black, white, and Asian. I mean, does the word even really apply at that point? I mean, school is tough these days. My kids are going to have to know how to pack a serious punch on the playground. And I don't really want them to have to bully their way into friendships, but which social clique is going to openly accept my little ginger snaps? I mean, the unusual thing I learned as I grew up was that I actually got more racial flack from the black kids than the white kids. I was in acting school at NYU, and the black kids were shouting half-breed at me as I was on stage, calling me white in the halls. One girl went so far as to say to my face that she hated me. I was astonished. I'd never done anything to her, but she got right in my face and told me she hated the way I talked, how I walked, didn't think I deserved the right to be called black because I didn't understand anything about being black. So here I was, just barely 20 at this point, still a confused little black girl. But now I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I mean, this went a lot deeper than crayons. I was 3,000 miles away from home, studying August Wilson plays about black angst, reading Eldridge Cleaver's Soul on Ice for character research, and everything was telling me to hate white people. That I was supposed to hate my family, hate those that loved me and raised me, and hold them accountable for the offenses of their ancestors. I mean, actually, not even my family's ancestors, somebody else's ancestors. My family's ancestors? A bunch of drunk Irish folk that didn't make it off a boat to the 1920s. Nana Sarah didn't own slaves. So hating my mother who changed my diapers, my father who flew 7,000 miles to get his newly adopted daughter, and hating my family and friends made no sense whatsoever. And although this obviousness was a challenge to come upon with barely out of my teens, I did finally realize that dismissing the rants of some angry kids that didn't know me was the best route. So I suppose it's normal, very pre-maternal instincts for me to feel protective of my merely rhetorical children. But I don't want them to, say, spend 3 months away from home, crying, struggling, forcing themselves to hate and listen to angry rap that they don't naturally like. I mean, I don't want them to call home to tell their crying mother that they're confused and don't know what is right, and are going to spend a summer vacation by themselves in New York trying to figure out what it means to be part of the black community. I don't want them to feel so lost and unaccepted that they do what I did. So maybe my real fear is that I won't know how to guide my children away from this potential heartache. I mean, maybe it'll come to me later in life, but I have no idea what I'd say now, which makes me that much more thankful for my contraception. But, you know, maybe their father will. I mean, maybe redheads are the missing link. I mean, they are in fact a truer minority than any given race. I mean, but yet ultimately accepted by their communities, despite being the butt of all jokes and nerds in all films. But technically, they're going extinct due to genetic unions like my marriage. They're precious resources that should be preserved, so perhaps this red-headed black baby-making thing is good. And maybe there's just no salvation to playground torture. I mean, nobody else gets asked what color their pubes are, but I can't stop that. And I'll just be waiting for the day when I hear, "Mom, they're calling me orange head at school. I know I'm supposed to be called redhead, and that's better than orange head, but what am I supposed to do?" I mean, that conversation is a distinct possibility in my future if I lose the gene pool throwdown in vagina. And I don't know how I'm going to answer that. I mean, I won't know until I actually squirt one out. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to mind if the whole dominant recessive gene thing works in my favor, but really, having a child holds a lot of meaning for me. My child will be the first blood relative I've ever met, and the first time I've ever been able to look into somebody's eyes and see a resemblance. And even if it's a freckled brown face with little red afro puffs, that perfect little amalgamation of me and my Italian stallion will mean the world to us. And I guess therein lies another reason my fiance and I are good for each other. We're both different, and yet came out as strong, well-adjusted individuals, so why wouldn't we have strong kids? Children that, even if people in the future still haven't found a way to rationalize and compartmentalize us. My kids will know where they fit. We'll make sure they always know where they stand, even if it's no place other than right where they are, alongside us.
Alanda Spence.